The Memphis Grizzlies were the great surprise of the 2021-22 season. As a team that was viewed by many, including myself, as a borderline playoff team, their internal improvement put them on the scene as the number 2 seed. But after such great success, what is ahead of them as we head into the offseason? Memphis Grizzlies have one of the deepest teams in the NBA, but they are headlined by their star in Ja Morant. Ja had an amazing breakout season, inserting himself into the MVP conversation before his injury later in the season. He was named Most Improved Player for his breakout season and was named to the All-NBA second team. Jaren Jackson Jr. did not necessarily take the strides forward that some had hoped for offensively this season, but he was an elite defensive player, one of the best defensive presences in the league, and arguably most importantly, was very available this season and did not struggle with injury. Dillon Brooks did what Dillon Brooks does. He played good defense, he brought great energy, and it continues to be a very important part of this locker room, as he has been described as the heart of this team by Desmond Bane, but continues to be a relatively inefficient scorer, especially from three-point range this season, and struggled to stay healthy. Desmond Bane continues to surpass the expectations of a 30th overall pick in his draft class, doubling his point production in his second season in the league while maintaining very good efficiency. He is an elite three-point shooter, but is continuing to expand his offensive game. Steven Adams was a valuable rebounder and defender on this team, and his screening and impact to playmaking and creation on this offense was important, but ultimately he did struggle to match up in the playoffs. Zaire Williams had a solid rookie season, significantly improving his three-point shooting over the course of the year, and showed great upside defensively. Kyle Anderson continued to be a very solid role player, but as he enters unrestricted free agency this summer, do not be shocked if he plays elsewhere next season, and the same could be said for Tyus Jones, who is also entering unrestricted free agency after a great season as a backup point guard, and will likely see his way to another roster. Anthony Melton had a solid fourth season in the NBA as a valuable backup guard, and will likely have to fill a slightly bigger role and shift back to more of a point guard role next season with the likely departure of Tyus Jones. Brandon Clark bounced back this year in a big way after a poor second season in the league. He provided great rebounding and energy and defense while providing very efficient scoring, all of which was magnified in the playoffs where his impact was very much evident. John Conchar still has holes in his game, but he is a solid rebounder for his size and a very good three-point shooter, which certainly makes him a valuable and fun bench piece. And this is still not including depth bigs such as Xavier Tillman and Killian Tilly, alongside young prospect Santi Aldama. So there's no doubt, even with some departures this summer, this Grizzlies team is as deep as they come, with a lot of talent and still a lot of young players with upside. And so even after surpassing expectations last season, what should they look to do in the offseason? So as previously mentioned, Tyus Jones and Kyle Anderson are both unrestricted free agents and are both relatively likely to leave the summer, with bigger roles and dollar signs being available elsewhere. Both have served valuable bench roles on this Grizzlies team throughout the course of last season, but the great thing about having so much quality depth is that the Grizzlies will not be in a desperate need to replace them. Anthony Melton can step up and fill more of the backup point guard role, with John Conchar potentially getting more minutes at the 2. Zaire Williams can play more of a significant role, as can Brandon Clark, to fill some of the minutes of Kyle Anderson, and the Grizzlies will be just fine. Now, that is not to say that the Grizzlies still can't look to add a depth forward and guard to keep their high level of depth, but it is not necessary for them to acquire a really good backup point guard and or forward this offseason, as they already have suitable replacements on the roster. Some of those depth additions that they could make could be veterans such as Alfred Payton or Raul Neto, who, especially in the case of Alfred Payton, could provide some level of defense and playmaking, and you still get some level of playmaking from Raul Neto. You could also get a little bit of defensive production from Javon Carter from a third point guard role. They're not amazing options, but the Grizzlies don't need an amazing guard replacement. But a veteran guard who can playmake a bit and can defend a bit as a fourth or fifth guard on this team could be a valuable pickup for depth on a minimum contract. At forward, Otto Porter Jr. is a free agent, although it is quite possible he returns to the Warriors, and if he doesn't, he will have significant interest from other teams across the league, and Daniel House Jr. could come in and provide some good wing defense as a fifth wing option. Outside of that, the biggest discussions for the Grizzlies offseason will surround extensions for their core. Ja Morant, Dillon Brooks, Steven Adams, and Brandon Clarke will all be entering the last year of their contract headed into the 2022-23 season, and in turn, all of them could be in contract extension discussions this summer. Ja Morant is the most important, but also the least controversial and the least we need to talk about of these aforementioned extensions, as he undoubtedly will sign a rookie max extension as soon as he can. He is the cornerstone piece of this team, the star, and so there's no doubt he will get locked up. For the other three, that's where it gets more interesting. Dillon Brooks, I personally expect to remain a member of the Grizzlies past his current contract. As described by Desmond Bane, he is the heart of this team. But whether he signs an extension this offseason or re-signs as a free agent next summer remains to be seen. He is eligible for a 4-year, $61.3 million extension this summer, which honestly seems like a good value to both sides and could be something they end up discussing this offseason, and ultimately I would not be shocked to see be signed. As far as Steven Adams goes, that could be a little bit more precarious. Steven Adams was very valuable to their regular season success, but was often not quick or mobile enough on defense to succeed in the playoffs, which could, and in my opinion should, lead to the Grizzlies being hesitant to give Adams a long-term extension for significant money, and in turn, I would expect Steven Adams will not sign an extension this offseason. Lastly, Brandon Clarke. Restricted free agents that are bench players such as Brandon Clarke do not often get extensions for one of two reasons. Either one, the player thinks they can still improve significantly and wants to bet on themselves, or two, the team does not believe enough in the player to want to commit significant term and money. In this case, I believe the Grizzlies have full confidence that Brandon Clarke will be a valuable bench piece for them moving forward. However, Brandon Clarke may want to bet on himself to increase his value. I would not be shocked if the Grizzlies and Brandon Clarke did agree to an extension after the great playoffs from BC, which in turn has risen his value, but I would expect a contract for him to be agreed in the 2023 offseason. Outside of that, the Grizzlies will have about $20 million in cap space, which they could make up to $37 if they offloaded the contract of Steven Adams. Something that is possible if they have interest in and believe they have a chance in acquiring one of this offseason's marquee free agents. However, as unfortunate as it may be, let's remind ourselves that we are talking about Memphis. And it is likely that Memphis, the small market that it is, will not be able to attract any big, significant free agent. So with that in mind, I would not expect the Grizzlies to be big players in free agency, but they do have the money to do so if somehow the option becomes available. But at the end of the day, the Grizzlies are still young and are nowhere near their peak. And despite such a great season last year, there is nothing wrong with running it back, especially in what will be a relatively quiet offseason compared to most. Are the Memphis Grizzlies a title contender yet? In my opinion, no, but they are very, very close. They are missing a bit more perimeter scoring creation and production alongside Ja, which is something they could get from Desmond Bane as he continues to progress, or something they may get via a trade down the line. But again, the Grizzlies are very young, and these players are far from their prime. As easy as it is to get excited and think that they should push to win it all now, they don't need to. As long as they maintain their elite defense, unlike their young counterparts in Atlanta, who showed a very successful 2021 regular season and playoffs, this Memphis team should remain one of the best in the West next year and every year for the next decade with this core. And with more development and or a big trade, become NBA title contenders. That is my thoughts on what's next for the Memphis Grizzlies. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more NBA content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.